Good evening and welcome to yet another session of Africa in Conversation. This is a place where we have virtual conversations that cut across borders to connect Africa to opportunities by unpacking, understanding, and working towards finding solutions to the fundamental challenges that continue to challenge us here in Africa. I'm Patricia Ngwani, your host for the day, and today we are talking the state of business in Africa. And as usual, I'm not alone. I'm joined by a business expert all the way from Nigeria. He's a startup specialist. He's a man that helps businesses across Africa to find clarities, to start and to grow their ideas into profit. I'm joined by Mr. Taiwo all the way from Nigeria. Mr. Taiwo, welcome to Africans in Conversation.
Whoa, thank you, Patricia. I'm so excited. How are you this afternoon? And happy Independence, Botswana.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I understand your independence is going to be tomorrow.
Oh yeah, we're going to be 60 tomorrow. And it's just amazing how truly, indeed, opportunities therein.
Awesome. We are growing 54 years of independence in Botswana today. Thank you so much for wishing us a happy Independence Day. Mr. Taiwo, Africa in Conversation. This is a place where we try to unpack different solutions and different opportunities that are there around Africa. And today we are going to be discussing the state of business in Africa. I started this conversation last week with Dr. Rosh Mamabulu, where we talked about the state of business in Africa, and we are continuing today in our quest to unpack more of this topic. And today I'm glad to be joined by you here today to unpack this amazing topic. I think I'll start off by just giving you time to introduce yourself.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to read my profile, but it's fine. So when people ask me,
it sounds better coming from you.
Okay, so when people ask me about that question, who is Taiwo? So I have several expressions, but so the first that I like to drop here and with purposes to what we're doing is that I am a startup specialist. So much more than a coach, much more than a coach, much more than a business strategist, because I've done business strategy for the last 20 years. So I'm a Gallup certified strength coach, but I've become a specialist when it comes to starting businesses and helping these businesses move on to the next level. So when you ask me, who is Taiwo? So over the years and with experiences gathered through education, through experience, and even through exposure and the environments that I've been in, I can confidently say that I am the startup specialist. For better clarity, who is a startup specialist? Almost like when you go, if you go into the hospital today, there's a generalist that sees you, all right? But beyond that generalist is the guy that if you have a complicated matter or issue, they will refer you to a specialist. So imagine a woman that has just conceived, they can refer her to a gynecologist. All right. If you are a dentist, they could take you to a higher level. All right. So I'm that guy that you come over to and say, look, I have issues with starting, or I'm about, what do I do next? And I'm there to help you. So that's Taiwo in a summary.
Awesome. I already feel that you are the right person to be discussing the topic that we are discussing today. Just to kickstart our conversation, Mr. Taiwo, the whole world has been, we are having this epidemic that's just around the whole world, the coronavirus, COVID-19 problem that is there around the world right now. And then the question that I have, that I believe everybody is actually wondering is, how, in your own opinion, how has COVID-19 affected Africa's economy?
Okay, so there's one thing that I am also that I didn't tell you. I'm an incurable optimist. So I'm going to be telling you about my own thoughts, and this is a disclaimer. This is like a disclaimer that, look, everything I'm saying are exclusively my own thoughts and my views as to the issues around Africa in this conversation. So it's okay if you get angry, but it's fine. So when people say there's a challenge and there are issues and there are problems, and begin as a result of even the COVID, I'm saying, look, COVID happened to create and open doors for Africa, right? So look, have we harnessed that opportunity? Okay, that's a question to ask. All right. So usually I come up around the issues that, look, Africa is farming its land when Africa should be mining its land. That's one. Listen to that again. Africa is farming its land when it actually should be mining land. So we have resources, but we're not putting it to use. The second thing is that Africa, even when we discover their resources, they are not converting it to the point where it becomes of value. So they're only just transferring. And that happens a lot around my region in West Africa. We are just consumers, we are not producing. So when you say COVID, I'm like, COVID, though the new normal, projected and brought in newer opportunities. So let's say a case in point. In Nigeria, you would have seen families of the average or even the well-to-do traveling for summer. But COVID shut down the air. And so people had to be creative as to what to do. That's an opportunity. People never think of local tourism. Even when they think of local tourism, they really never thought about the very next place around them.
Yeah.
But somehow COVID seems to have created this opportunity. And so is it an opportunity or is it a challenge? For me, I think that, and with the way I'm saying it, the scales are falling off our eyelids now. And truly, COVID has presented a huge opportunity. But, with opportunity, the next thing is that are we able to harness or utilize this opportunity? That's the next question. So that's a leadership question. That's also a followership question to say, are we ready? Because it's okay that there's an opportunity, there's a door to be opened, but who is going to open the door? Who is going to convert people? All right. And who is going to even turn things around? It's still tied to the leadership and even the followership. I hope that kind of brings a clarity around those thoughts.
I do understand. So basically what you're saying is, as much as there might have been challenges, but they're both negative and positive impacts to the COVID-19. So it's about us understanding exactly where we stand and harnessing the opportunities that came with COVID-19.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, and still on the issue of COVID-19, because I understand we are at a stage where most of our people have to be on lockdown, in and out of lockdown, and there's this opportunity that has just came in Africa, Bitcoin, I would say. And then the question that I'm having right now is, in your own opinion, how can a capitalist economy impact Africa? How can a capitalist economy impact the economy of Africa?
Okay, so I'm going to flow in three directions, all right? And I'm going to take the discussion from the question around the COVID implications and then take it to the cryptocurrency, which is a brand of Bitcoin, all right? Bitcoin is a brand in the cryptocurrency, segment. Now look at it. So Africa, COVID happened. Inflation grew to an all-time high. What happened? The price of oil collapsed abysmally. All right. What happened? Businesses started to what? Fold up. I think people started, now at some point, people also started to think. Now, they thought, for the international community, there was this perception that the worst had happened in Africa, or the worst will happen in Africa, because one, in terms of infrastructure, is lacking. In terms of healthcare, is lacking. But anyway, now, in view of these extant realities, you have the cryptocurrency to say, is that not the next wave that can drive Africa to the next level? I say yes. And why do I say yes? Remember, we said inflation happened, dwindling oil prices and all of that. In my country, the inflation is oscillating around 12 to 15%. Now, if you have money, that means that even when you pay interest, with interest at between 5 to 10%, it therefore means that there's a double negative impact on your money per time. What do I mean? I'm saying that if, for instance, you put your money in the bank, and in putting your money in the bank, it's supposed to give you a 10% return. Inflation right now today is about 12 to 15%. It therefore means that even when you put that money in the bank, the value of that money depreciates by 3 to 5%. Is that savings? No. Now, what does the cryptocurrency provide? Even though it has no negative, connotations, and because of the fact that it's not regulated. All right. But the reality is that it's able to help curb issues around inflation. It's able to also stop, because the financial inclusion level, our financial penetration level in Africa is at a low. It's also able to help solve that problem because there are a lot of bottlenecks. So you want to open an account in my own country or in some other countries, there's what you call know your customer, KYC. When you go on that journey, some guys don't have ID cards, national identity cards. All right, we are trying to get that right in my part of the world. Some people don't have even well delineated addresses. All right, thank God for Google Maps. But if you tell somebody what is your address, it's not like it's southwest of this, in my own area. So what does this do? We also have gadgets, which we call phones. All right, and these phones are the gateway to accessing any part of the world. So why can't I have an account? And that's what somewhat the cryptocurrency regime tries to solve. It cannot be regulated because even the internet, as we speak, cannot be regulated. Yes, you can reduce or censor what must be viewed or what can be done, but it's not owned by anyone, and so you cannot control it. And that's why the cryptocurrency, of which Bitcoin is a variant, all right, can and ultimately help reduce some of the burdens that we're experiencing in Africa. It's almost like your MasterCard and Visa card. You can use your MasterCard anywhere. You can use your Visa card anywhere. All right. And this is simply what that does. This is simply what that does. And you are able to move on without any difficulty. All right. So, and that's it. I think that the entrance of this brand of cryptocurrency into our regime is able to help us take things to the next level. And that's just it. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Mr. Taiwo.
Yes, I'm listening.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much for that clarity. You put it up in a way that clarifies just everything. Earlier on, when you were talking about the impact of COVID-19 on the state of business in Africa, you mentioned something that really excited me. You said we have resources in Africa, but we fail to put them to use. And my question is, one way or the other, do you think our culture as well as Africans is affecting the state of business in Africa?
Okay, so let me tell you, so you can argue that in different ways. And we have been battered, and we're talking about independence, right? It therefore means that there was a way we were living, and there's now a way that we're living. So pre-independence, or even pre-decolonialists, there must have been a way we were living. For Africa, there was communal living, all right? There was the respect for one another. There was dignity in labor, all right? And then colonization happened. And even in some environments, they experienced what we call apartheid, right? So there was a demeaning of the human mind, where the mind was repressed. Now, let me take this home even further. Now, children, when they are born naturally, they have three key tendencies. One, a child is born restless. So what happens is that we teach the child to conform by saying, sit down. Why are you running up and down? Because we're not redirecting the energies positive. The second thing is that
I keep losing you there. You said something about a child being born with two tendencies. I think if you can try and repeat that and then maybe say it a bit clearer, because I lost you somewhere there.
Okay, so when I say children are naturally born with three key tendencies, one is that the child is born restless. Every child that is born restless. So we have somehow taught the child to conform, to not be restless, all right, by calming that child down. The second thing is that children are born curious. They are always asking questions. All right. Now, beyond being curious, the third thing is that children are born fearless. All right. So, in being fearless, and so what has naturally happened is that in Africa, because of our culture, because of our nature, and because of colonization, it has further, demeaned or enabled us not to truly function in our true state as producers. That way, we now experience what we call, we are now we conform to a directive, we conform to a norm, we conform to a system. When in actual fact, we should be curious as to what are the changes we ought to make. And I don't know if you can hear me, but the reality is that until we start to change our mind, all right, having a mindset change, we might not be able to make any meaningful or transformative change. So it starts with the mind, all right? It starts with the mind. And this mind is such that we must unlearn certain things, we must relearn new things. And, we just even must discover the new ways. And I think that's one of the things that a COVID experience, the pandemic, has presented. Patricia, I think we've lost you, but I think I'll just keep on. So until we have that change of mind, all right, the mindset change, we definitely cannot begin to experience the change that we desire, particularly with regards to commerce in Africa. We are not curious. We have become conformists, and we are no longer restless. So everybody just stays, everybody is calm. There needs to be a new energy that needs to fire up the Africa and indeed Africans to begin to achieve great feats. So I usually would sit down and, in one of my sessions, in one of my sessions, I hear people say, we should go ahead and what's going on in the markets today. So I tell them, like, in our local market, we have what we call a grinding machine. And the grinding machine in our local market is such that if you ask anybody, prior to the time I was born, I'm in my 40s. Prior to the time I was born, they will tell you that the color has always been blue, right? And the color being blue is such that somehow, you're right, the color has been blue, and somehow you hear things like, okay, good. So colors are the color of the grinding machine in a typical African market, in a typical Nigerian market. The color of the grinding machine is But guess what? And this is where I'm going to. The color has not changed since the time I was born. The best improvement that happened to the grinding machine in the market is the fact that they connected it to electricity, right? So that's one bit. But that wasn't even it. The fact that anytime you go into a supermarket today or in a mall, there's what you call blenders, there's what you call smoothie makers. You soon find out that those things change even every day. Whereas in our typical markets, the grinding machine has remained the way it was even before I was born. Now, until we start to see that and apply ourselves, and that's one of the things I was talking through about the principle called workship. Until we begin to see and apply ourselves in our own industry, in our area of expertise, we cannot truly begin to experience prosperity as a nation or even as individuals. All right, and I'll leave it at that.
So amazing, so amazing. Um, um, I think one of the things again that got me thinking as you were speaking is last time when I was talking to Dr. Roche, I mentioned to him that I had come across a statistic that had mentioned that they are saying 80% of Africans' growth in terms of population is happening in cities, making us the largest urbanized region in the world. And then looking at the urbanization that is happening in Africa, the question one might have is how does this impact the state of business in Africa? Do we see it growing the demand and supply? Do we see it hindering it more? So that I think when we were talking with Dr. Roche, he mentioned one very exciting thing to say, as Africans, it's within our nature and our culture to be people that are more agricultural based. And if all of us are going to now grow into be city women and city men, city boys and city girls, then who is going to be doing the agriculture and who is going to be feeding us? And now I'm going to bring the question back to you, Mr. Taiwo, to say, urbanization is happening in your Lagos, in your Gaborone, in your Johannesburg, your Durban. But is this a good thing right now for Africa?
Okay, so let me and you see, this is still a mindset that I like to address. Not that I come, like I said, this is a disclaimer, and everything I'm sharing is based on my own perspective and my understanding of issues. Okay, so urbanization. Urbanization is an opportunity. Now, I hate it when people refer to the neglect of the agricultural sector, and link it up to urbanization. In advanced clients, you don't have to have 1 million people farm a land. It's mechanization. So how does the movement of a people from arable areas affect the production output? It's still because we are thinking using the local implements. Because there cannot be food sufficiency as long as we have people using the local implements. There are greenhouses in Amsterdam. Yeah, you have citrus, conclaves in Israel. There is a desert. They've been able to take their agriculture to the next level. All right, and so that answers it. The second thing is that one of the things that Africa has going for her is our numbers, the numbers that we have, and that truly these numbers, if properly harnessed or utilized, can actually be our greatest benefit. We're a large consumer, but assuming that we are also equally producing, it therefore means that there's a ready market for Africa to trade. But the inequality is that Africa is not trading with itself. Botswana is not trading with itself. All right? People rather import than utilize their local production. And that's where we're having issues. All right. And until we're able to address some of these key things, then we can move forward. So, back again to the issue of urbanization. You soon realize that urbanization, if truly and properly addressed, can also become a multiplier. It could have a multiplier effect. And what do I mean? The roads need to be cleaned. That's more jobs. People need to eat, more restaurants. Yeah, hospitals need to, be available, healthcare. And you see that even with the convergence of people, there's what you call the comparative advantage. You soon discover that somehow the environment, if properly addressed, becomes a thriving economy, just even by having all needs met. And so I'm not one of those that would, like I said, would say, look, urbanization has it's essentially a problem. Even though, yes, there are challenges regarding infrastructure. There will be issues around overcrowding, unemployment. But can we also flip it the other way? If there's a shortage, if there's a problem, and the problem has been identified, then that problem can be solved. If there are health hazards, then can we also find prevention for the health hazards? And that means opportunity. If there are slums, then it means that there will be enhanced development. All right. If there are sanitation problems, that means that the refuge and the sewage lines need to be properly improved. People need to be engaged to do that. So you'll see that, yes, these problems portend opportunities. And that's where I'll just stop.
Awesome, awesome. You summed it up very excitingly. I love the statement you said when you said Africa is not trading with herself. Botswana is not trading with herself. So basically, we need more people to rise up and trade. Yes. And now let's take another angle in this thing and answer. I think this one is more of a personal question. It's something that I've been wondering as per se as an individual, and I believe it has crossed the mind of a few. Let's talk about the infrastructure in Africa. I want to believe that most of our African countries, they have very poor infrastructure. And then the question that one might have is, we are expecting investors to come into Africa. We are expecting investors to come and invest in our country. But then the bigger question that one might be wondering is this poor infrastructure that we are having in Africa in any way affecting the investments that the investors from coming to Africa, the investments that should be coming into our country?
Yes. Okay. So, look, we cannot run away from the fact that there's a need for us to address, these challenges around infrastructure. But so when will these challenges be addressed? And who will address it? Is when we take a concerted approach, a concerted, effort as a people to say, look, we cannot keep running to areas that are seemingly prosperous or that have the infrastructure in place. Someone has to build that infrastructure. And how is that infrastructure? And that's also tying down to a bit of what you were talking around about urbanization. So how does government, one of the questions you ask, how does government get money? One of the ways government gets money is through taxes. How are people taxed? It's people that earn money that are able to pay taxes. All right. Now, if the scope and the scale in the scope, so even though Africa is lagging behind, we have all that we require. It's called the mystery of capital. We have all that is required to make sure that we're able to integrate the regional corridors. We are able to make every of the rural areas functional. We are able to evolve value chains across the country. So, but why are we not doing that? It's because we are also being myopic. Imagine in Africa, we don't have central hubs that we should be trading. everybody is, I want to do it all alone. And also that reflects the way we run our businesses. In other places, people converge to build economies. And that's not how we were before now. Africa before now, or Africans and their traditional business model has been such that we used to be very communal in our approach. But guess what? Now, rather than thinking the bigger picture, everybody is now, saying, no, I want to build individualism rather than thinking of the social fabric to see how it enhances everyone. So I think that when we start to address these issues, until we start to understand that the urban population, the urbanization, as it were, or the urban population in South Africa or in the sub-Saharan Africa, portend for us an opportunity. It's just for us to remodel and say, look, when you have the financial analyst, and the business model experts, they can come up with a business case and say, okay, right now in Africa, there are already 725 million phone users. In my country, when the GSM, the Global System Mobile, the mobile phones came up, there were no infrastructure. About 20 years down the line, the infrastructure came from where? From consumption, from the usage. And they are now rolled out in all the cities. But that was like a few years ago. People, it's almost like 2 decades. But that's the reality. So we're able to come up and, as a nation or as the continent, to start to think of the numbers, to say, how are these numbers beneficial to our figures? Then we can build plans and fund infrastructure, notwithstanding the infrastructure deficit that we're expressing as a continent. We cannot get people to find. But what happens is that even when we get, particularly in my own time, in my own area, when they finance these projects, half or even a 3/4 or 75% of the money is taken away. So how then do you want to even develop the nation or develop the infrastructure? Are you going to wait for the private sector that constantly, have been investing to repair roads, provide power? In my country, most businesses provide the essential basics, from road to water to security, those basic infrastructure, And look, it's just time that we start to reconfigure ourselves, tell ourselves the truth. And I love this conversation, honestly, Patricia, that we need to have more people have this beyond this big conversation. We need to have these interventions and start to have pilots and experiments of whatever we're talking about, so that truly we can know. Because you have numbers to our advantage, but we're not using it. All right? We have land to our advantage, we're not using it. And yet, we keep saying, there's a problem, there's a challenge, but we're not doing anything. And when those that are doing something, you also need them in bulk. You are using your parochial ways to, stifle, the new world order. It won't work. The policies must change. Governments must also begin to become more proactive in their approach rather than be reactionary, and take advantage of what this community has brought in to say, look, we are all in this together and we must find our own way, else we'll get out of the way. And a new colonization will take place. And that will not just be the colonization of our land, the mental colonization. Because our society is still being by what is happening, in the western or in the eastern part of the world. So I think this infrastructure business is still tied to the mind business. All right.
Yeah, very, 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 very true. I do understand you. Daisy. But now let's take it this way, right? I don't know if this is common in East Africa, but I guess in most countries that I've been to in Africa, This is basically common in most countries where we have youth coming into business at very large scale and amazing numbers and very exciting numbers. But most of our business lacks sustainability, where in 2 years' time, almost half of the numbers have gone out of business. And then the question that one might have is, what do we need to do to bring in sustainability in our business here in our youth businesses here in Africa? Because one thing that I'm meant to understand, or that I like so much about youth run businesses in Africa, is that there is a lot of creativity in it. Young people are coming up with great, amazing ideas across Africa. They are coming up with exciting ideas across your Zimbabwe, your South Africa. There are so many exciting ideas. But our ideas they lack sustainability. We go out of business way before time. Then the question that one may ask is, what do we need to
do? Okay. Now, almost also a disclaimer, all right, because these are my own thoughts. And
yes.
And when people ask me, I tell you, yes, it's okay to fail, but what do you learn from failing? That's one. Now, I also came up with what I call the stamina approach. The stamina approach. But beyond the stamina approach, all right, is the fact that we must have the energy. It's an equation. We must have endurance. All right. And we also must be in tune within ourselves to say, stay in power. But most people vacillate in their trade. So there's a solution I always posit. I said, look, I call it the foods methodology. Is the spirit of enterprise. And the foods is an acronym. The F word is focus. The thing is that with horses, they have blinders when they go on racing, all right? And with those blinders, they are able to ward off what we call distractions. That's one. So are we focusing well enough on our business? That's the first thing. The second thing, the other O, is order. You see, line upon line, precept upon precept, are we building organically, or are we chasing the wind, chasing the fad, just Googling online and saying, oh, they started this business, and copying and pasting? Or are we ordering our steps and ordering our mind to determine what the problem is, and that this is a problem we want to solve? Now, if, for instance, there's a problem of the shortage of water, and you want to address that problem, once you solve that problem, will you continue to address that problem? No. It therefore means that if you solve the problem of provision of water, soon, except to create some improvement about the water, that business would have gone out of the way. The other O is optimism. We must, like I said, have incurable optimism about, and hope. Hope is that currency that I'm already trading in. Yes, people are trading cryptocurrency, but I have hope. So as a business person, as an entrepreneur, as a startup, there must be the unyielding hope, right? That hope, unalloyed hope. And then D is there must be discipline. Are we disciplined enough in our approach, in our mind, in our, in everything? Because if you stay in a particular course, if you hit it hard, it's going to give way. And the last in the spelling of the food methodology is S. Are we creating the right support system? And that's one of the things that I'm already trying to solve with the Startup Summit. And so, like in Nigeria tomorrow, we'll start with some conversations around the pre-launch of the Startup Summit, which is going to hold the 1st of December, 2020. But an enabling environment. We don't have the right space, the supporting system. There's no go-to person. If you go and meet anybody that is in the older bracket, they're probably retired, or they probably have a different way as to how to run in this new era. Yes, there's experience, but there's a way you trade. All right, there's a way you run. So you cannot use the mindset of a gadget, or almost like the phones that were 10 years, 20 years ago. Probably could function by, they could only perform one or two functions. But the devices of today are monolithic. They have various uses, and they have various functions. They are not monolithic. It therefore means that if you had an experience of how to use phones way back, and now you are talking about today, you must either adapt or you fizzle out. So businesses or business owners, startups, must begin to create or find their own community. And so that's one of the things that the Startup Summit will start to create, where people, as they start up business, they can have the appropriate mentorship. They can enter into a mastermind group. They can begin to also, share experiences. And that way, we can have what we call experiential learning, where we share experiences and then support each other. And if possible, create funding by concerting our energies together. Remember, it was Margaret Mead that said that that nothing can ever stop a people that have decided to change the world. Indeed, nothing can ever stop them. Is it Margaret that said, light is the burden where many share the toil. So when we start to converge in Africa, when we start to connect and collaborate using various mechanisms like the Startup Summit, we truly can begin to start to have sustained or sustainable companies. So that you're not doing it all alone. Now let me close with this. Also, there's a thing there in particularly about everybody wants to own something, but why can't we come together and concentrate our energy? So you get to advanced places, particularly in Asia, and you find out that even in other areas, you see people are coming together to do business together, and that way the burden of the business, even when one is down, it doesn't mean that the business should be down. And I keep talking about the company I went to in Netherlands, a 400-year-old company. It has remained in existence for 400 years and has moved on and on. The company is called Unpack. You can Google it, 400 years. And it has moved from family to family. Right? And they've expanded. And what did they start with? They were bottling vegetable oil. Now they are a big conglomerate of oil tanking and chemicals. They are not trading oil. All they are doing is storage. Now ask me, that's a business that has branches or companies or affiliates over 100 countries. How are they able to achieve that? They have focused. They have created order. They understood the need. They did not get distracted. They were disciplined in their plans. Even though plans have to evolve constantly, but they applied themselves and they started to find solutions, homegrown solutions, not copy and paste. So if you start to use somebody's and you say, if you copy someone to move, even when the person writes something wrong, if you are those bad people, you have people that are copying, are trying to lift whatever people are writing in classrooms. If there's an error, you are going to be copying that same error. But the guy that has read does not have to copy the error. You would have found out how not to do it. So I think that if we're not lazy in the mind, we can begin to respond differently with some of the crises that we experience. So we begin to see them as learning experiences or as a learning curve. So that way we can build businesses that are built to last, all right, and that are
Awesome. Okay. So now in closing, I think that the last thing that I want us to talk about is we are about to close our conversation here, Mr. Taiwo, is the bigger question for today, as we are talking the state of business in Africa, the bigger question is businesses are businesses in Africa, African businesses, are they solving the problem that we are having in Africa? Are businesses that we are having in Africa solving the exact problem that we are having here in Africa? Or our businesses are just all about you know, they are not all tailor-made to solve the kind of problems that we are having in Africa. Are our businesses solving the current problems that we are having in Africa?
And I must tell you, that's a very valid question. A lot of people are trying to think because our failure to think has started to plunge our economies into problems. To think that people are not thinking to improve, yes, they could have had good intentions, they could have had good plans, but if those things were not tailored towards addressing the real problems, it would have been tantamount to it. And that's what we've been experiencing before now. But people have started to think. People have been thinking. And you've been seeing some gradual shifts. People have been addressing problems, the big problems. There's a new wave going on right now. There's a new movement going on right now. And people are beginning to emerge to address the African issues, the Nigerian issues, the Botswana issues, succinctly, so that somehow in solving that problem or those problems, they are creating value. And in creating value, they are also becoming aggregators of value. And you know what? That way, we've started to build economies that are built to last. Let me say something. Look, until we start to identify the big issues to address, because it's not just about, I want to start a business. Sometimes when you ask somebody, what do you want? The person thinks that I need money. If I had money, no, those are not the issues. What problem do you want to solve? Because as you start to solve those problems, you'll soon find out that you would have created value. Now, most even business enterprises or their agencies are created to just give people money without addressing the real problems. And that's why, as a startup specialist, sometimes when people come to me, I can be a bit harsh. But the reality is that I will help you find clarity to say, hey, are you about to, what are you starting really? Did you just stumble on this by happenstance or by just roaming the internet? I thought, oh, this might be a good idea for Gaborone. No, it shouldn't be that. Have you done a list or assessment of what might be needed? Would it be a problem? So let me give you a typical example. Toothpick. Do you know what toothpick is? You know what toothpick is?
Yeah.
You know, in Nigeria today, no company manufactures toothpick.
You're saying?
We import toothpick.
Yeah, true that.
But yes, everywhere toothpick is needed. So is that not a problem to solve? Is that not a market? Will people not buy?
It is.
You get into a coffee shop most times, the coffee is from where? It's probably not from your locality. Yet, we are wasting everything away. So back again to say, look, until we start to understand that we are problem solvers, we're created by, and I'm a Christian, that I'm created to solve a problem. And in solving that problem, I get reward. It says, be fruitful, be producers, not just consumers. Be participants, not just spectators. All right, be in the game. There can be real change. And until we start to address the problem, that problem of the problem being the problem of the mind of the people coming to understand that they are producers, they are change agents, they are victors. Yeah, we can't truly begin to morph into a continent or a country that we say is developed. I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Mr. Taiwo, we have had quite a very exciting conversation today. We've had quite a very, very impactful conversation with a lot of wisdom in it. I think what stood out for me today is that you asked a question. I think you asked a question that's still ringing a bell in my head to say, are we focused well enough in our businesses? And I think that's the question that every person, not just the youth, but every other person that is rising in business in Africa should be able to ask themselves to say, are you focused enough in your business as a person in Africa, as a person that is adding up to the bigger picture of people that are standing to change the game of Africa? Thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Taiwo. I would love for you to just share your last words, sum up your last advice to entrepreneurs, business people around Africa.
Okay, I'll break it into two. One is that post-COVID, or even in this COVID area, there's what I call the EAT methodology, eating your way out of any crisis. One, you must create an experience as a business owner, because right now the margins are thinned, businesses are failing. You must differentiate yourself with an experience. The other thing is that you must change your attitude. Customer service is intrinsic. You must be customer centric. Your attitude towards your customer must change. And then the T is you must offer timely solutions, or in terms of your activities, must be time bound. And then 4 competencies you must develop. You must have social competence. You must move beyond social competence to the sympathetic competence, right? Somewhat around emotional intelligence. You also must move to the point where you are able to deliberate or interpret, where you can, because decisions now need to be made by you. And so are you ready? And then you must have the featuring or futuristic competence to say, yes, 2020 seems to have been cloudy. We're entering the last quarter. What am I going to do differently? And that way, that's one of those things that you need to have and to do in this time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you once again for joining us today. Yes, people of Africa, we've heard our conversation. Like I said when we started, this is where we have virtual conversations that cut across the borders to connect Africans to opportunities. We are all about unpacking, understanding, and finding out solutions to the fundamental challenges that are faced by Africa. And I believe you'll be joining us on the next session of Africa in Conversations. Yes, today we were talking the state of business in Africa, finishing up the conversations that we started last week with Dr. Roche. And in my understanding, a lot of things stood out for me. I learned quite a lot. And one of the things that I have to remind you that Mr. Taiwo said today is that we have the resources right here in Africa. We have all the resources that we need. And he said it, he said we have resources, but we're not putting them to use. It's high time we put our resources to use. And the other thing that he made it clear to us is that we need to understand when we venture into businesses, when we decide to go into the line of entrepreneurship, we have to understand that Africa is not trading with herself. Botswana is not trading with herself. South Africa is not trading with herself. So make your business ideas globally. And the other thing that you need to remember is that businesses in Africa, let's bring them up in such a way that they solve problems that are there in Africa, challenges that are there in Africa. He gave an example of a country importing toothpick, you know, where you think about it to say, okay, fine, there's wood all over, we can actually make up something like this. And the other thing that actually stood out for me is the part where he talked about focus. And he asked us a very, very vital question to say, how focused are you in your business? As you go out to go and venture in business, as you go out to go take your business to another level, remember this. You are not trading with yourself. Africa is not trading with herself. Now bring out the focus, bring out the determination, put in the energy, like he said, and we will see Africa rising to the state where we want to see it. We will see businesses in Africa growing into amazing levels that we want to see. Yes, we are called Africa in Conversations. We'll be here again next week as we'll be having another conversation that is vital to the challenges that we see in Africa. Join us next time, and thank you so much for joining us today. Bye.